Hi, hello everybody. We are live. Yeah, like we have 40 attendees in so far, which is great. To everybody who's here so far, my name is Courtney Luce. You've probably seen my face on a lot of emails, potentially promoting this. So I work with Donade. Hello, Pauline. I work with Donade. I'm the customer success manager here, and we have partnered with Amanda to do this 3-part webinar series, which we're really excited about. It's Cynthia said.
Hi, Cynthia.
Wow, chat is happen.
Yay.
Yeah, so one thing, while everybody, hi Cheryl. You know another Courtney Luce. I just became Courtney Luce. I got married in November.
That is, Cheryl from Colorado. Where in Colorado are you? Oh, nice. I'm just in Evergreen, Cheryl.
Right.
What organization are you with, Cheryl?
Hi, Amy Sue, Brian, Megan, Leslie, Emily, Lisa.
Massachusetts. Love it. Dave. Hi, Dave. Front Range. That's awesome.
Awesome. I was actually going to say, hey, type in your name and organization and city while we're waiting for some more people.
They're already doing it.
You're good.
Ashland City, Tennessee.
Central Texas. I'm in Texas right now with in-laws. I'm in Austin.
I love seeing all these therapeutic writing centers. I love all the other organizations too, but you'll find out that's my background. So it's very exciting to see all these centers. I love it.
Courses, Coffee Creek.
I'm hugging you, Jan. I'm hugging you. This is like the best kind of hug any of us get these days, right?
Virtual hug, maybe a little virtual high five. There are a lot.
Oh, Bern, I love and miss you.
Yeah, there are a lot of writing therapeutic places. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
I was joking with a friend the other day who lives in my neighborhood. We went on a walk. We stayed on opposite sides of the road. Nobody judged. Nobody get upset.
So we do have a question.
Huh?
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. We just have a question about audio. I want to say until question and answer session, you won't have audio or video. It's just chat for now. So I will turn that on at the end of the presentation so you can chat.
So we were on this walk on opposite sides of the street, and a cop went by us twice, and we started joking, like, I don't know, if taking walks far apart becomes illegal and we have to be, if we get taken in, at least we'd be touched. Like, at least when they handcuff us, so we'd have like human contact besides our hands.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, Kayan! Salida, I love it.
Thank you guys so much for typing in. We have people from everywhere. This is great. All time zones.
I love it. Yeah. Which is pretty cool because right now when you can't like go anywhere, it's really awesome to be able to talk to people from all over the place. Yeah, that's extra special. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, so we still have a few people trickling in, it looks like. If you have not... If you've not seen, people are writing in their name and city, organization, where they're from, just in the chat if you want to do that while we're waiting to get started, that would be great. Again, if you didn't hear me the first time, my name is Courtney Luce and I work with Donade. This is Amanda Bosick, who will be leading the whole presentation today. I'll do a formal introduction soon, of course, but she is great. Steam Right Step in Littleton, Colorado. That's Colorado.
I love it.
Arizona. I love Arizona. The Agape Acres Therapeutic Writing Center. That's great. Yep, we have family in...
Oh, my Agape family.
So cute. Yeah, we have family in Arizona and Texas, so we get to travel there all the time. Love it. Strides in Plainfield, Indiana. I'm from Mooresville, Indiana.
Oh,
Plainfield.
very familiar with Mooresville.
Really? Most people
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Aww.
Everyone's talking to each other. I love it.
Debbie Anderson. I love you. Oh, Jill. Jill, is Katie participating? I'm just kidding.
We know Katie. Is that Katie?
I know. Katie, yeah. her daughter is one of your
Yeah. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, she's special. She's wonderful. Well, all you horse centers, I've got my horse mug this morning.
That's a cute one. How do you know everyone? Who are you talking to? Yes, Mooresville just had a tornado right by my parents' house, but no one got hurt, which is a blessing.
Yeah, and amazing. Yeah. It's a tough time to have a tornado.
Yeah, but restaurants weren't open, so nobody was there to get hurt.
That's true.
The buildings got hurt, which sucks, but
yeah.
All right. Well, it's now 9:07, so I don't want to take up too much more of your presentation time. I know that's what people came to see. So again, finally, for the final time, you'll hear me say my name. My name is Courtney Luce. I work with Donate. I actually have a background in the nonprofit space. So I used to do fundraising and marketing for a small nonprofit in Indiana. And loved it, but came on to Donate because I also love what Donate is doing too. And we partnered with Amanda to do this 3-part leadership series. So we're excited not to just have her today, but for the next 3 weeks to do these webinar series. So it's every Wednesday at this time, same place, to join on and just hear about different topics. So from everything I've known about her so far, she is wonderful. So I'm really excited to hear her expertise. She has over a decade in nonprofit experience, which is amazing. She, as many of you from Agape know, was the CEO of Agape Therapeutic Writing in Indianapolis, or I guess Northern Indiana, right? Or Northern Indianapolis, for 7 years. And now works for Evergreen Results, which is a marketing agency that I'm sure she'll talk more about, but helping organizations do that sort of thing. So we will just go ahead and let you get started. Again, very excited to have you, and thank you for joining us. And yes, people, please utilize the chat. We will be doing our best to answer questions and keep up with all of your great conversation as she's talking. So
absolutely. I thank you so much, Courtney. I am really honored and excited to be able to do this for all of you, especially being able to do something that goes pretty in depth over 3 weeks. Right now we just have so much information coming at us. And so the fact that you are taking the time to be with me is something I don't take for granted. It is the fact that you chose to take time with me and spend time with me is something I'm incredibly grateful for. And I hope that at the end of today and at the end of these 3 weeks that you will be encouraged, uplifted, and you will be armed and equipped to go through this storm and exit this storm successfully. It's something that is really important to me and near and dear to my heart, that our nonprofit agencies and small businesses are able to thrive through this. So I'm going to preface and say I have the notes on a screen right here. So if I look over here at times, it's because I'm looking at my notes. But we're going to dig in, and I'm going to share my screen with you and share the webinar with you. So what we're going to talk about over the next 3 weeks, we're going to tackle leadership-related challenges that you have specifically in crisis. So some of the things we're going to talk about apply whether or not we're in crisis, but I want to clarify that when we're in crisis, things get accelerated. So there are certain things that if we bring it up, it's extra important in a crisis. It's definitely important outside of a crisis, but because crisis accelerates and moves things forward really quickly. And it's kind of like, I'll say this several times, on a normal day-to-day basis, we're playing like a chess match, very strategic, thoughtful, calm, maybe not calm all the time, but for the most part. Now it's like we're playing tennis and we have to make decisions like really quickly, and we have to recover really quickly when we make a mistake, and we will. So I'm trying to see if sorry, there we go. Why are we here? Because we're in a crisis. The definition of a crisis, now I combined two definitions. So if you go look this up later, it's not going to be word for word because I took two definitions and I put them together. But the definition of a crisis is a crucial stage or turning point in the course of an unstable or dangerous situation. The piece I really want to emphasize is the turning point. So all of us are experiencing this crisis. We're all experiencing it in a different way. If you could answer the poll on your screen, I just want to gauge where organizations are at. Gauge yourself as red light, yellow light, or green light. Red light would be you feel like your doors might close. It's a very severe. Yellow light would be you're maintaining. It's not great, but you're making it. And green light would be as if like you had reserves in place, you're doing okay, you haven't had to make drastic changes. If you could answer that poll, that'll be great. And that'll give us a little bit of, help me gauge a little bit of where everybody is at. Your leadership in a crisis is needed now more than ever. One of my favorite definitions of leadership is by John Maxwell. A leader is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So it is about being strategic. It's about being able to look down the road and around the corner and anticipate what might be coming. But then it's also being the example that moves forward, acts out of courage, is the example in our day-to-day life. That is the great responsibility that we hold. So I love that definition. Okay, the polls. Most people, about 65%, are in the yellow zone. That's good. A few in red and about 30% in green. That's good. What are we going to accomplish? Let me back up. Let me just say, in regards to your leadership is needed now more than ever, I want to take a moment to say that you were made for this. You were made for this time. Even if you don't feel like it, you are in your position for a reason, for a purpose. Your team needs you now more than ever. Your participants and your clients need you now more than ever. Your stakeholders need you now more than ever. Your volunteers need you now more than ever. None of us asked for this, but you are at a crucial turning point. And what you do now not only determines how you get through this, but it will, for many of you, it will be your legacy at your organization, is how you handled and how you responded to the COVID-19 pandemic and how that impacted your organization. And so don't let your circumstances talk you out of your ability to lead. You are here for a reason. You are needed more than ever. So I want to encourage you and inspire you and equip you to be able to handle this storm. What are we going to accomplish today? Specifically, we're going to be able to identify, at the end of this, you'll be able to identify 7 leadership principles that I like to say make up like your root system. So your foundation, it's what's going to hold you strong through the storm. Then we're going to talk about 10 practical, financial, and missional action steps that you can take right now to lead your team and your stakeholders. And then at the end, you'll have an application guide that will help you work through taking those action steps. We already talked about me. I'm just going to skip that. Our organization, Evergreen Results, we are a marketing agency. We help nonprofits and small businesses scale and sustain. So our goal is that we partner with organizations and agencies that are making a difference, and that we want to see you grow not just wide, but deep as well. So we want to see you scale and sustain the impact that you're making. All right, to get started, I want to talk about, before we get into the principles, I want to talk about perspective. It's hard at times to take this perspective, but hardship is a gift. It can be a gift, even though it's hard to see it that way right now. Your view determines what you do. So the perspective and the posture that you have as the leader of your organization determines the posture of your team. If your posture is full of anxiety and fear, it will flow over into the rest of your team. That's not to say that as a leader, we don't have anxiety and fear. We absolutely do. But we have to combine that with courage and discernment. We have to know when and how to share that fear, because we don't want to place that burden on our team members or our stakeholders unnecessarily. So part of it is the paradigm shift in our perspective of viewing hardship as a gift, redefining hardship as a way of making us better. And it's this opportunity that we get to steward right now. I mean, everyone on this webinar has the opportunity to lead their team through a crisis that our nation and our world has never experienced before. As scary as that is, it's also an opportunity. And it's a great responsibility. So the very first thing I want you to do as we go into this webinar is think about, what is your current view as a leader? How do you view this situation? And hopefully through this webinar, we can kind of help tweak that and shift that, if we need. This could be your finest hour. This should be your finest hour. This can be the legacy that you leave for your organization. Don't let your circumstances talk you out of your ability to lead. I've led teams through many crises before. Right now, my husband and I are leading our current team through this. But when I was serving with nonprofits, different kind of crises. Obviously, this is, COVID-19 has never happened before. But I remember going through a crisis at the Equine Assisted Activities and Therapy Center in Indiana that I ran, Agape. And I remember a mentor of mine, I was in tears at one point because I didn't know what to do, and I felt overwhelmed and I was scared. And I remember this mentor talking to me and saying to me, think about the legacy that you want to leave at Agape. And he brought up the movie Apollo 13. And so I don't know if many of you remember this movie, but there's a point at which they're in the command center. They're trying to figure out how to get the ship back to Earth. And they don't have enough fuel. They don't have enough resources. And the commander in the command center says, we've never We've never lost someone. We're not going to lose someone now, not on my watch. And this mentor said to me, like, take the perspective and take the stand of not on my watch. We will not have to shut our doors on my watch. And I just want to say to you that there are going to be times where you feel like getting through this crisis is like a battlefield. And remember and be motivated and encouraged by not on my watch. I will do whatever it takes, not on my watch. I will do whatever it takes to make sure that we come out of this intact. Now we're going to dig into the leadership roots. That's my call to arms. Pick up your armor. A tree is held by held up by its root system. So the stronger the root system is, the better the tree can withhold the storms that come. So these are 7 principles that, regardless of having a storm or not, are important to have, but definitely during a storm so that you can withstand the storm. So whether or not you currently practice these principles and you embody these principles, first I want to challenge you, none of us are perfect. This is a constant, everyday, try to keep it top of mind sort of practice. But I do want to encourage you that if any of these are things that you don't think about on a regular basis, I do want to challenge you to start thinking about how you can implement them and practice them in your leadership, especially during this time. Number 1, people first. We're all in mission-centric, purpose-driven organizations. We exist to serve, we exist to help people and serve people. So we need to keep that in mind. Always keep serving people first. And in a crisis, that can be hard to remember, but it's still, that principle still remains. How can we provide value and serve people? As a leader, you're there to lead your team, who is there to lead your constituents. So your main priority and focus is on your team and how you can serve them. I love this quote by Zig Ziglar: if you help enough people get what they want, eventually you'll get what you want. And I have found that to be incredibly true. Be authentic. The way we can be authentic, always tell the truth, even when it's hard. Stay close to your team. And right now, that means maybe connecting with them daily or weekly, but knowing what's going on in their lives, what they're working on, being close to them. Uncertainty is okay, but courage is necessary. And we're going to talk more about that part later. Be in the crowd. So you need, again, this goes back to stay close. One of the ways you are authentic is you're with people. You're genuinely with them and for them and here for them. But as a leader, you also have to be able to keep your head above the crowd so that you can see the big picture. And that's one of the things that's probably most challenging about right now, is because you probably feel like every day you're deep in the waters and you can't see, you can't get your head out of the water to see above the waves, but you need to be able to take the time to get your head above the water so that you can see the big picture in order to lead your team to that end goal and end result at the end of this crisis and at the end of this year. Mind over matter. You got to win the battle of your mind as a leader. A lot of it starts up here. Our thoughts impact our behavior. In order to lead your team well, you have to be in the right mindset and have the right perspective, because again, your perspective and your posture determines the posture of your team. You are the example. You are the one your team is looking to. They are looking to you for how do we get through this? What do I do? And it's not just in what you say, it's also in how you're responding and how you're acting. So when that anxiety and that fear comes, because it's very real, we have to be able to win the battle of our minds in order to lead people well. You're the lid, so what you let in comes in, and what you let out goes out. You are always the first. You should be the one to go first, and you should be the one to eat last. Simon Sinek is an author that I love, and he has a book called Leaders Eat Last. And it's a great book about servant leadership, and around the military. Actually, he spent some time studying military leadership, but it's around this idea of servant leadership. But at the end of the day, you are, as the leader, you are the lid to your organization. So what you do, you're the one who is the one to open it and the one to close it. And what are you allowing into your life and your organization? What are you allowing to go out? Because that is impacting the entire organization and the entire team. The golden rule, this is my one of my principles in life, but also in leadership as a whole. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. If this one principle is something that you always keep in mind, and with any decision you think, how would I want someone to treat me in this situation? If that's how you approach it, then you will be successful. It also creates generosity when you think of others first. And if you think about the way that you would want to be treated, and the best antidote for fear is generosity. Find things to celebrate, because we all like to be celebrated and we all like to celebrate. And it's extra difficult in a crisis, I think, because you have to be very intentional about what is there to celebrate right now. But I know that there is, and what gets celebrated gets repeated. So it's extra important to be intentional about making time to celebrate right now. Even if it's hard to find something to celebrate. Find someone to appreciate. Extend gratitude, extend generosity, even when it feels like all you can do is think about what you need as an organization and what you need as a leader. The moment you start to express gratitude and appreciation and celebrate other people, you will be filled. Every great leader has a bent to action. It doesn't stop at planning. You have to act. People don't know what to do until someone shows them and tells them what to do. So we lead by example. More is caught than taught. Again, this goes back. You need to go first and lead your team, not just with your words, but by your actions. And then lastly, lead you first. Someone said the most difficult person to manage and to lead is myself. That is so true. It's especially true right now when routine is up in the air, there's anxiety. Every day you feel like something's changing. But it is so, so important to make sure you take the time to focus on, how do I keep myself accountable? How do I discipline myself? Self-care is a part of this. I don't think it stops at self-care, though. I think, you know, there are a lot of things that, again, we as leaders can lead our teams by example. This goes even down to like, okay, during this crisis, when I'm working at home, I'm still going to get dressed every day. I'm going to get up. If I don't talk to someone on a video call, I'm still going to act like I'm still going to present myself like I am, because it's part of me leading myself. So manage yourself with discipline and intentionality, even more so than others. And it also shows you how to, I like to say, lead with grace and then truth. So when we practice that with ourselves first, then it's easier to do with other people. You know, we lead ourselves with grace and then truth, but we don't just stop it at grace, and we don't just only offer truth. Okay, so now we are going, I need to move my notes up. Now, these 7 principles can be practiced over time, each day with intentionality, and it creates a strong root system. Those 7 principles are a little bit more theoretical. These are going to be 10 action steps that you can take right now to lead your team through this crisis. And I want to say that this is leadership, not reactionship. So when you go through these 10 steps, this is you being proactive about how to manage and respond well to this storm, how to lead through this storm. Step 1, educate yourself and determine reality. So as the leader, you need to know the facts. You need to know the facts about COVID-19. You need to know the facts about how it's impacting your community and your organization specifically. And then you need to share the truth. Winston Churchill, I love the example he gave all of us, but he did this really well. He would, what someone called, frame the crisis. So whenever he needed to share about the reality of a situation, he would frame that crisis in a way that not only provided hope and a call to arms, but it still involved the brutal facts. So Jim Collins, in his book Good to Great, he refers to this as the Stockdale paradox. So you have to balance realism with optimism. You can't just motivate your team right now. That's not what they're looking for. It's not about motivating, it's about leading. So you have to be able to share the brutal facts about how this is impacting your organization, and alongside of the faith to prevail and overcome and get through it. But it can't be it shouldn't be just one or the other. Step 2, define your victory. So again, that's a picture of Winston Churchill. He's because he did this, he was a great example of how to do this. So he did a great job of painting a clear picture of the future. And right now, you need to have a clear picture of what that looks like. And that is most likely different than the picture you had at the beginning of the year. And that's okay. It's probably necessary that it's different, but you still need to have an idea of what success looks like at the end of this. It's not just about flying the plane through this storm. It's also about how you're going to land it, how you're going to exit it. So in order to do that, this goes back to making sure you're in it, but you're putting your head above the water to see at the end, in December, in October, as an organization, where do we want to be? There are a few things you can do to make this really tangible, and this is going to guide some of the other steps we talk about. But one way you can do it is to create a desired future statement. So this is a way to clearly define your victory. A desired future statement is defining what you want to accomplish over a specific period of time. Another thing you can do is you can set a date right now for celebrating together later. So you can say, okay, in November, in December, October, with your team, I'm putting a date on the calendar right now. We are going to have a celebration, and we're going to celebrate how we handled this situation. We're going to celebrate how we responded to it. When you make that a verbal commitment to your team, everyone is now accountable and motivated to think about how are we acting and responding and handling the situation. Because when we get to October, November to celebrate, I want to know that we conducted ourselves in a way that we're proud of. So when you take the time to say, okay, I'm going to make sure that we plan a celebration, then you're thinking about, we're going to celebrate because we're proud of the way we handled this. And then you're thinking about, am I proud of the way I'm handling this? So those are two things you can do right now to help define the victory. Create a desired future statement, which is very likely going to be different than the goal you had at the beginning of the year. It needs to change. But whatever that looks like, and then set a date to celebrate that and celebrate getting through this crisis as a team in whatever month you want to set that date for. Step 3, you can form a crisis advisory team. So this team is small and informal. It is comprised of experts in specific areas that you feel you need the most counsel and advice through this crisis. So it is going to be very specific to each industry and each organization. And it's comprised of people that are trustworthy and reliable sources. So with so much noise right now, sometimes it's helpful for us as leaders to be able to mute the unhelpful noises in order to think and really try to make just wise decisions, especially when we need to make some decisions quickly. I want to clarify, this does not have to be comprised of board members. Our board members are experiencing the same crisis that we're experiencing, and they're experiencing how to go through it like we are. Some industries are actually thriving in this crisis, depending on, what their service is. And then some, are really struggling. So depending on your organization, your industry, let's say we have a lot of the equine assisted therapy centers here. It might be something where you need and want a medical or healthcare professional to talk to about specifically, like, when would it be okay to have lessons one-on-one? When might it be okay? What are some practices we need to put into place for to keep everybody healthy? Maybe you want a vet on your crisis advisory team to help navigate through, when you have limited people working with your horses. Again, maybe it's a financial advisor to help get you through some financial questions. So again, it's going to be very specific to you. It should be small, informal, trustworthy and reliable, and experts in specific areas. Maybe it's marketing. Small plug. Step 4, pivot your strategy. So again, I mentioned earlier, crisis tends to accelerate change. And that challenges our methods. So the first thing I want you to keep in mind when we think about pivoting our strategy is separate mission from methods. A great analogy is in basketball. If anybody's familiar with basketball, a basketball pivot is when you have both feet planted and you have the ball, but one foot stays planted on the ground and the other foot pivots. So you rotate in a direction to protect the basketball from your opponent. The foot that is planted and remains planted is your vision and your mission. That, through the crisis, does not need to change. It should not change. Your mission doesn't change. The foot that is pivoting and rotating is your methods and your strategy. Those most likely have to change. You know, a lot of us have a tendency in anything difficult, so, you know, crisis being that, fight or flight. So, you know, most of us either immediately jump into, you know, fighting and taking action right away. And then some of us maybe are paralyzed with indecision. We can't move forward. Both of those extremes are places we don't want to be at. Even when we have to make quick decisions, we don't want to make rash decisions. So we still need to take the time to pause and plan, surround ourselves with that counsel and that advice, think about what victory looks like, take a deep breath, and then move into action, dare to act. But we have to make decisions. We can't be on that end where we're indecisive when we're paralyzed, and we can't be on the other end where we're making really quick and rash decisions, and we're not taking a moment to think about what should we do next. So it is crucial that you pivot your strategy. The strategy you had in January, February, and even the beginning of March, you know, that really was not that long ago, but it feels like it, doesn't it? Can't be the same strategy you have right now. So I want to talk about a few really specific strategies I'm talking about, plans I'm talking about. Your operational plan as an organization, your programming plan, your fundraising or sales plan, your marketing plan, and your cash flow. Those last three, fundraising, marketing, and cash flow, we're going to talk about a little bit more in other action steps. Your operational and programming, I am going to assume most of you have already moved and pivoted that strategy, because that was very likely the first thing you had to do. You had to think about canceling lessons. What I want to challenge you with and encourage you with, and this goes back to separating mission from methods, is for some of you, oh, it's getting a little dark in here, sorry. For some of you, can you provide more services virtually and provide value right now when it comes to programming? I know I'm thinking of equine assisted therapy centers right now off the top of my mind, and I know it's really challenging and really difficult. But I think that taking the time to think through it and even as a team is really beneficial and valuable. Crisis can be a cradle for innovation. So, you know, challenge yourselves when technology is not something that you're comfortable with or familiar with. Challenge yourself to embrace it in order to provide immediate value and to serve your participants in this time. You know, the way you handle this situation, the way you treat and serve your clients or your participants now is going to last and remain with them when we get out of this. The other thing I want to talk about is keep your strategy simple. Right now, because things are changing so much, you need both short-term and long-term plans, and you need a plan B, a plan C, maybe a plan D. But what I'm encouraging organizations to do is to do a plan, either a 2-week or 4-week plan, and then also a plan that's about 3 or 4 months down the road, and then 6 months down the road, and 9 months down the road. And then you're going to pivot that plan all along the way as you go, depending on what we can do. You know, is shelter in place still enacted? You know, or can we start to slowly do other things and, you know, have people on site again? But regardless, we don't really know what that looks like. So you need to plan short term, and you need to be able to change it on a regular basis. But also, again, keeping in mind, how do we want to land this plane? Not just how do we fly it right now? The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to planning is to choose effectiveness, not just efficiency. So dying organizations become more and more efficient because the focus becomes purely and solely on what do we cut, remove, replace. Efficiency is important, don't get me wrong, but we can't forget about how can we be effective. And a lot of this is in the questions that we ask ourselves. So reframing the question, you know, asking questions. Effective organizations ask questions like, what does this make possible? How do we serve more people through this? What are the opportunities we have now? You know, crisis often brings about opportunities, but we'll miss them if we're focused on fear. How do we cut things? This is the plan and I can't pivot. You know, this is the way we do things. I can't do it any other way. We have to be able to adapt and be flexible and change. So effectiveness over efficiency. This is that paradigm shift of, instead of asking, what do I want from my stakeholders? Ask the question, what do I want for my stakeholders? Step 5, rethink fundraising. Again, just like your programming and operational plan, your fundraising plan has to change. It cannot stay the same. One thing I always encourage people to do, whether or not it's in crisis, is think about the needs of your donors and your volunteers. Again, that's that golden rule. You put yourself in their shoes, and then you want to find the intersection of your needs. So this is, you know, a visual to give you. You've got your organizational needs. You think about your stakeholders, your donors. In the middle is where you have fundraising success. And you want to target and aim your organizational resources and assets in the right direction. So you want to think about, where is the intersection of what they need right now in this crisis and what we need. You know, something you could even do is just simply send an email out to your clients, your participants, your volunteers, your donors, and with one question, you just ask them, what do you need right now? Based on those responses, you can start to put together some plans based on knowing, like, what do they need during this time. I also want to encourage you, don't freeze and stop all fundraising. I cannot emphasize this enough. You still need to be fundraising. You need to change. You most likely need to change how you're doing it. Like, if you had an in-person event planned, for now, you can't do that. But does that mean you need to cancel the whole event altogether? Maybe not. Depends, but maybe not. People want to help, and you need to give them the opportunity to help. Please don't hear me say start pounding and begging. This again goes back to thinking of people first. This can be as simple as calling stakeholders and asking, how are you doing? Like, how is your family doing through this? How's your business doing through this? And having that conversation. And in that conversation, it comes up about how is your organization doing in return? And you have this conversation. And in that conversation, you can talk about the needs. Again, sharing the faith to prevail with the brutal facts with your stakeholders as well. But you still need to ask. And you need to shift, again, separate your mission from your methods, change and shift your methods, but you still need to fundraise. You need to ask. If you don't ask, you will not get the support. Step number 6, really quickly. I want to give you a few ideas of how some things I've either seen or that we have helped organizations tweak and shift when it comes to either sales or fundraising. So something you can think about, one thing you need to think about is if you put yourself in the shoes of a donor or in a corporate sponsor, for example, cash flow is really important right now for everyone. So how do you reduce that barrier and make it more tangible? Something you can do, let's say you have an event planned for the fall. Instead of not recruiting sponsors at all, you could do, let's say you have, one organization we're working with, like a table is, $800 for a table at a gala. They can offer, and they're going to offer that, sponsors can pay $100 a month for 8 months versus having to pay $800 right now to sponsor that table. That takes away a lot of the financial pressure and barrier, and is a lot easier for a company or even a family to say, yes, I'll still purchase a table for your event because I can do $100 a month right now, but to give $800 right now would be kind of tight because of cash flow reasons. So that's the kind of creative, out of the box problem solving that you need to do for fundraising, where you can still meet the needs that you have as an organization, but also meet your donors where they're at and reduce their barriers. You can also think about special COVID-19 emergency fund campaigns, shifting events to virtual events. There's a lot of creative things happening right now, and we would love to be able to help you with that. So one of the things that we're going to offer as a giveaway is that we want to offer one free virtual fundraising strategy session. So at the end of this, when you get a follow-up email, if you're interested, send us an email about being interested in that free virtual fundraising strategy session, and we will at random draw a winner to provide a free fundraising virtual strategy session for you. Okay. Step 6, analyze cash flow. Cash is king in a crisis. That goes for everyone. I'm gonna do this quickly, but I can't stress enough, if you have not applied for the payroll protection program and the economic injury disaster loan, you need to apply for both of those, and you need to do that now. You don't need to delay. I have not seen a reason not to apply yet for an organization. There might be one out there. I just haven't seen it yet. So we strongly encourage all of you to apply for those and to apply for both of them. They don't impact one another in a negative way, so you can apply for both. Again, that's the payroll protection and the economic injury disaster loan. Next, when you're doing your cash flow analysis, I would like to call it you do a 2-bucket drill. So labor is normally where most companies and organizations have a majority of their resources. So that's why labor is kind of its own bucket. And then the next thing you need to do after labor is do a line by line, go through every single expense and determine what can be removed, what can be delayed, what is necessary, what's fixed and what's variable. Even some things that we think are fixed can be variable right now. So you need to do a line by line, and you need to start removing the things that you don't need right now. The next thing is to look at reserves if you have them. If you don't have them, let this time be inspiration to you to build your reserves when you get out of this. And then after that, you can look at a line of credit, even if you, whether that's you have a line of credit now, or maybe you can apply for one right now if you're in good standing. That way it's there in case you need it. It's like a fourth line of defense. You have your cash flow, then you've got your reserves, and then you've got your line of credit if you, or you've got TPP and EIDL, and then you've got your line of credit if you need it. I can't stress going through this process enough, and I can't stress updating it on a regular basis. You need to know at all times where your cash flow is. This is different than your budget versus actual, everybody. This is the cash you have on hand right now. So you need to keep this updated at all times. If you need to pull in an expert to help you, that's where that crisis advisory team comes in. Have someone come in and help you, and make sure you know where you are with your cash flow at all times. Step number 7, commit to communicate and change your message. So if you are a leader, you are all leaders, you are a communicator, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way around it. If you're a leader, you're a communicator. So you need to, right now, you need to commit to communicating above and beyond what you're used to during this time. Your team needs you to communicate with them regularly. Your stakeholders need to hear it. I want to have, did we already do that poll? Good. So if you are in, most of you have already communicated with your stakeholders, which is great. The handful of you that have not, I want to encourage you to do that, and to do that sooner rather than later. The longer you're silent, the more your audience starts to wonder and make up their own story about what's going on. It's not just about communicating. You also have to change your message. This goes back to defining, creating that desired future statement. You have to cast a clear vision and communicate the honest facts about what's going on for your organization. I don't know how many of you, I should have done this for a poll. I don't know how many of you have watched the Tiger King, fad that's going on. But if there's anything, I can't believe I've watched it, honestly. I felt like it was one of those things I sat there and thought to myself, why am I watching this? And then I still watched it. But if there's anything I feel like comes out of that as an example, is that we see in that show that when you create content that is meaningful to your audience on a regular and frequent basis, your audience grows. So some of these big cat rescues have audiences that I never imagined they would have. And a lot of it has to do about the fact, and you saw them in the show, they were always communicating and talking to their audience. They were doing video updates on a regular basis, and that was without COVID-19. So remember that when you curate meaningful content on a regular and frequent basis, you will not only stay in touch with your current stakeholders, but you will grow your audience, which is what you want to do. Step number 8, mobilize your marketing. So messaging is the what you do, and marketing is the how you're going to do it. So you really need, again, you need to pivot your fundraising strategy, and then you're going to need to pivot your marketing strategy. I want to see, we have a poll up right now. What methods are you using to communicate with stakeholders and your team? I'm going to challenge everyone, even when it feels uncomfortable, to start to learn some different methods when it comes to marketing, because to reach and speak to your stakeholders. Think about, again, this is understanding your participants and understanding your volunteers, but knowing where they are and how they're intaking information right now and what might speak to them right now. Also think about, with your marketing plan, how to incorporate generosity and goodwill during this time. It goes a long way. It will be remembered when you land the plane. Your goodwill during this time is going to be remembered. So I've seen a lot of different organizations and centers be creative with this. You know, I've seen some people, you know, send creative notes and, you know, write messages on horses and then send that video to their stakeholders. It looks like there's a lot of social media, less videos, and some emails, and then all of the above. Some people using all of the above. So about 50% of you are using all of the above. Zoom has a free 40-minute platform that you can use. If you use Google as your platform, Google Meet, Google Hangouts is free and works great. So there are lots of ways and methods and tools and that you can use to communicate and stay in touch with your audience. But I'm going to challenge you to learn this. Step number 9, set the scoreboard. So you have your desired goal in your statement. You've pivoted your plans, all your plans. You should know at this point what your vital signs are as an organization. What are those key performance indicators specific to you and your organization? You need to set a scoreboard. I highly encourage you to make this clear, simple, accessible, measurable, and visual. Your whole team needs to be able to see it and access it on a regular basis. It needs to, you know, it needs to kind of be like a thermometer or a scale or a chart. You need to see it. You need to see the needle moving. Watching the needle move is really empowering and gives us hope. Like, we're not going to stay in this forever. So you need to create a scoreboard for your organization, make it simple. And then step number 10, leverage your team. Leverage your team. Delegate with intentionality to them, but they need to have a role in this drama that we're all in. So they need to have clear key performance indicators or key result areas that tie to those vital signs that impact that scoreboard. They need to know what is most important for me to be doing right now. And more than ever, when everyone is working remotely, you have to have more clarity and more accountability. Manage outcomes, not processes. This is something that goes when you lead a remote team in general, but your outcomes are those goal areas you're looking for. Your processes is how someone does it. So if someone wants to work at 5 a.m., because they need to have their kids at a certain time, or you're rotating the homeschooling with your spouse, every few hours, you don't need to be managing the process right now as a leader for your team. If the goals and the outcomes are not met, then that's what you need to be managing and keeping team members accountable to. If it doesn't matter, don't pretend it does. If it does matter, don't pretend it doesn't. You have to provide clear accountability when you're leading remotely. If someone doesn't make a deadline, you have to bring it up. If someone doesn't accomplish a certain goal that you set, you need to bring it up. Don't let things go under the radar and avoid that conflict if it matters. If it doesn't matter, like when they get it done, then it doesn't matter. Okay, we've covered a whole lot today. These are some application guide questions. We're gonna go into a short Q&A time. I went over time. I'm really sorry, everybody. You're gonna get a copy of this later, so you can go over these application questions depending on what you've already done as an organization. You can look at what you need to do next. But we'll go into, do we even have time for a Q&A, Courtney, or did I ruin it?
Yeah, if people have time for a Q&A, I'm fine to stay on. I was just popping on before we get there to say, so many of you may not know about Donate. So we were hosting this webinar with Amanda too, and we wanted to actually extend a special offer for everybody who's joining us today, which is 20% off our service. So we help organizations fundraise virtually, find volunteers, host events, do all sorts of things with engaging their supporters. So we want to offer that. I'm going to I'm going to type in the promo code into the chat. So make sure you copy and paste that somewhere if you want to use it. And I'm also going to send you'll have like a quick CTA for requested demo that I'm sharing right now. So if you do have more questions about what we do and want to request a demo with us, please feel free to do that.
Awesome. And I have used WeDo, which is a connected to Donate umbrella, I guess, of Donate. It's their auction service for years, and it's awesome. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I used to use them too when I was in the nonprofit world, and they're great as well. So yep, I did the requested demo, and then also I can share if you just want to go ahead and sign up for Donate, I'll share the actual app link too, so you can kind of browse and do that.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a great offer, Courtney.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry everybody. Q&A. Any questions?
I also turned on everybody's camera ability throughout the webinar. So if you're having issues, let me know. We'll try to turn that on, but feel free to just either chat your question or talk. Turn your mic on and talk.
Don't ask too hard of questions, people. Just keep it easy, okay?
I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, and the sound of gnawing bones in the background, I promise, is the dog.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sorry about that. So we had planned a virtual fundraiser. It's an annual event for us that would typically kick off at the end of this month. My board has the sense that it is the wrong time to do that and thinks that we should perhaps wait 30 days. Can you talk a little bit about timing these things?
It was already a virtual fundraiser, or you just
No,
had
it's
to
already
change
a virtual fundraiser.
Can you explain a little bit of
it's a virtual horse race, and individuals raise. So we recruit jockeys and ask them to raise money. We have a very nice corporate match for $15,000, and they've actually said to us they'll give us all of that regardless of what we raise, and basically told us to invoice them at any point to help with cash flow. So
Awesome.
We recruit jockeys. We give them information. We ask them to reach out to everybody on social media. We use Acel Events as our platform, and then we, we take donations, and it's typically tied to the Kentucky Derby with a party for all the jockeys and their families and the board and staff at a board member's home to watch the Derby. The problem with moving it to September with the new Derby date is that that's less than 30 days after our in-person fundraiser in August, which we actually are hoping to host. And so we would like to try and have it sooner rather than later, but I'd really appreciate your wisdom on that.
Sure. So something, in evaluating the situation, it's unique to every organization. I'm not sure like how much of your, annual budget or your current cash flow analysis is dependent on this fundraiser. So part of it, asking the question of, is this one of your primary significant fundraisers?
We do 3 a year. We do this one. We do the an event, and then we do an annual, ask at the end of the year. Even if we cut what we anticipated, and I'll be candid, we with the match try to raise $30,000 and pretty much make that every year. If we drop that to, we get the 15 from the foundation, corporate foundation, and then if we cut the other part in half and make that 75, we'll still be in the black. We'll break even by literally $228 in our cash flow projection. Otherwise, we'll be down about $7,500.
Is this a one-day thing, or does it happen
It
over
happens
the course
over the course
weeks?
of a week. And then we do a build-up, which typically we would have already started because the actual fundraising week would start the week before the Kentucky Derby.
Okay. Yeah, so this is
I appreciate that. I do. I'm looking, these are all over the map. I'll take whatever wisdom anybody has at this point.
I think that if you were to be really intentional on reframing your messaging for the event, so I think it needs to look different than it has in the past as far as like how this helps us, what this does for us right now, but also reframing it to talk about how this can be fun and engaging for your participants who are missing. I'm assuming you're closed right now, so they're missing the barn. This is a way for them to still like be engaged and have fun and connect with the place that they love. In that regard, it's also about them. From a financial perspective, if you don't hit the full amount and you're still going to be okay, but it's also, if doing it is still really going to help you right now, my go would be to still do it, and do it in a way that engages your stakeholders during this crisis. Like, we miss you, we love you, we want to celebrate and still do this with you. The Kentucky Derby's canceled, but we're not canceling this. Like, we still want to do this with you, because normally those types of fundraising activities are ways for participants to engage with their horse and have like friendly competition, like, with their
So let me
horse.
clarify one piece in that the jockeys are typically not participants. There are a few. Some are volunteers. Some are people in the community. We serve our population slightly different than a lot of centers in that the vast majority of ours are particularly low functioning. I hate that characteristic, but it's just a reality. We are doing quite a bit on social media. We've got video chats with the horses and bedtime stories and things we gleaned from others. I didn't come up with that. I stole that idea from another center. So I'm.
Oh my gosh, so good. I hope other centers just heard that idea.
It's
Bedtime
been
stories.
great.
It's awesome.
But yeah, so
awesome. I think that's okay. If the jockeys aren't participants, I mean, it's virtual, right? So, I mean, maybe that's something maybe that's how you pivot this strategy a little bit. How can we incorporate the families of our participants a little more so that they really engage in this fun virtual event? Really think about it in ways of how can we create immediate value and it will raise money at the same time.
And just ask a quick question. As far as her event is concerned, I missed part of that. How do they bet on your jockeys and horses, and how do you do that?
So no, the jockey.
So no, the jockey picks a horse.
I don't know why I have feedback.
And I don't know why I have feedback, but I do.
Then they win.
So
whoever raises the most money wins.
Whoever raises the most money wins, and everybody gets a trophy.
Okay. So the jockey has to go and raise the most money for that horse, and then you physically, like that day, we would have a race.
No. There's no real race. The race is money.
No, there's no real race.
The race is money. Okay.
And then on Kentucky Derby Day, we cut it off, and then we watch the race.
Kentucky Derby Day, we cut it off, and then we watch the race.
Okay.
And we announce the
winner. So we can still do the virtual. We can still do the party.
So we can still do the virtual.
That's what we're going to do. The party in September. But this sounds much better than the bingo game with the horses. So.
This has been very successful. I didn't design this.
This has been very successful. I didn't design this. I inherited this.
The key is to have a corporate donor.
The key is to have a corporate donor.
Great question. I'm gonna maybe you guys great question. I'm gonna maybe you guys feel free to reach out for ideas. Feel free to reach out for ideas. Cynthia, question. I think that Cynthia and some questions that I asked. Brian asks, from a marketing perspective, what is the best or most effective mode of contact communication right now during the crisis? How has this shifted during the crisis? That is an excellent question, Brian. From my perspective, there is not one best or most effective way. And I'm sorry to give you such a difficult answer, but I think that I think it is most important right now to be using multiple channels and multiple ways of connecting and communicating with your team and your stakeholders. So that can be, video and phone calls, I think, are more important, especially for the personal and intimate conversations. I think video is better than phone. And then for a broader or group communication, it's a variety. You've got people are taking in information when and where they can. If they happen to homeschool, then maybe they're taking a break while they eat lunch with their kids and they're quickly scrolling and they come across an Instagram, an IG video. And that's how they're going to take in their information. So part of it goes back to knowing your audience. So my answer is, from a marketing perspective, know your audience. That's a huge piece of how you answer and how you respond. So how is your audience mainly taking in information? And then how has this shifted during the crisis? I think one of the ways it's shifted is whether it's churches or nonprofits or other businesses, we're all having to adapt and figure out a way to connect with our constituents where they are and how they need to connect. So, for example, in our company, what I might call like the rush hour times, those are times like, you know, before 8 a.m. and after 5 p.m., your typical, like, you start and end of workday. But for a lot of our clients or a lot of our stakeholders as a company, we're talking to them on the weekend, early in the morning, into the evening, you know, at different times, because that's what they need right now. That's when they're available. So it really just depends on your audience, and I would say multiple channels. Cynthia, your question, guess my biggest question is, what do you do when 80% of your team is not motivated and doesn't want to do anything differently? Cynthia, that is hard. And I would go back to number one, you got to start and look at yourself. Like, how are you leading? Are you leading out of a place where your actions and your decisions are ones that, again, you're not just motivating, you're leading. So you've got to inspire them, and they have to understand the severity of it. If they don't, like, let's say, for example, if you are facing the possibility of having to close your doors in a month or 2 months because of the way it impacts you financially, and you have not communicated that or thought about how to communicate that with your team, so they don't know the severity of it, then they may not care as much. It might be that they would care more if they understood how serious it was. If it's a part of who they are, to me, in our company now and in the past, personalities that are just like okay with status quo are some of the most difficult personalities for me. And normally it just wouldn't work out, because I want to be surrounded with people who care, who are passionate, who are in this with me. Like, we're in this together. We're doing this. We're serving, you know, so if it's just part of who they are that they don't care, then it might not be a good fit overall. And I would also say that as a leader, you're stewarding the resources of your organization. Your organization lives and thrives off of the donations or the payment for services. So essentially, someone is saying, whether they're paying for a service or they're giving you a donation, they're saying, what you do is worthy of my financial resource. Me, it's worthy to me. I am trusting you to steward this money. So if you have team members who don't take that responsibility seriously, then I would question their, I would probably just have to question having them on the team altogether, because you need people on your team who are going to also be good stewards of the gifts that have been given to you to do the work that they're paying you to do. I know that's a harsh answer. Adam popped in. He should come over here and say hi. No, he's saying no. Adam is answering your question, Brian, and says that personalization is key. Always ask the question, where is my audience? If anything, we know that people are online more than ever. So social, email for broad communication, videos, and then for emails and texts and calls for personalized communication. Video goes a long way right now, a long way. That is so true. Cynthia, just to say, even if you're second in command, you're a leader. You're leading. You have a group of people that you're responsible for. Any other questions? I'm so thankful, guys. This has been so good. I hope it's been good for you. Thanks, Cheryl.
For doing this, Amanda. People still feel free to
sample stored. You know what, Karen? I think that's it's so specific to the organization, but I do have a few templates that we're going to email out. It kind of depends on the tools that you have. So, for example, if you have Donate there, or if you have Google Drive, for example, it depends on the tools and platforms you use, because you can build a scoreboard on one of those platforms that you can monitor and track. So it's really specific to the organization, but essentially you want to just say, like, at the top, what's that desired future statement? What's that desired goal? And then what are the vital signs? So it might be like financial vital signs. Maybe it's number of participants. Maybe it's something related to horses and health, horse care. And then, you know, depending on those vital signs, those need to be really specific vital signs. And then you're going to assign team members to key result areas to making sure you hit those target vital signs. Oh, thanks, Lori. That's super sweet. Well, again, we're going to send out, you will get a follow-up email with this recording. So you'll have the application guide questions. You know, application, to me, it's like paint. If paint just sits in a can, then my walls never change colors. So you have to actually get the paint out, put it on a brush, and swipe it on the wall. So application is everything. You can't just take in the knowledge and not apply it. So you'll get the application guide. You've got the Evergreen 20 discount code with Donate. And then next week, we're going to talk about really specific.
From Solium. What's that?
From what?
Solium?
Courtney. I just want to say, next week we're going to talk about specific ways you can remotely engage with your stakeholders. So those are going to be really tangible and specific things that you can do. Thank you, guys. I don't take your time lightly, and I appreciate it. And it was really great.
I just shared too your website with everybody, so that's this call to action. Again, somewhere in there is a request demo link. I'll send that out in an email as well. We have right now going on a stimulus grant that I didn't mention earlier, that we're offering some free strategy sessions as well to help people in this time, and some free like personalized onboarding and all kinds of good stuff. So we will send emails with all of this great information, including the recording, the presentation, just any resources from myself or Amanda with Evergreen. And we'll get you set up. So thank you guys all so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And make sure to come next week.
And not on your watch. Not on your watch.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll see you next week.
Yep, see you guys.